right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today for this virtual filmmaker chat as we count down the days to the Woods Hole Film Festival. Can you believe it starts on Saturday already? My name is Sean Bulk, and I am an associate programmer at large with Woods Hole, and I'm joining you today from my apartment in Fargo, North Dakota. This is my first year on the team, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. And while I certainly wish we were able to be together in Woods Hole with a beautiful view of the water, I'm very grateful that the festival has given us an opportunity to have a public discussion about the amazing films programmed in this year's festival. If you haven't already, please make sure to visit woodsholefilmfestival.org to learn more about the virtual festival and to purchase a festival pass. Today, I'm joined by some very special guests representing 6 short films in the festival. This morning, we're going to preview their fantastic films and celebrate the moving stories that they present. I've been fortunate enough to see all of the films, but I know that many of you watching haven't, so we'll be careful with spoilers, I promise. So to get our conversation started, we're going to begin with a round of introductions. So I'll call on each of you that are on the call today. And then if you would, could you share your name, where you're calling in from today, and what film you're with, and what your role was on that film? All right, so let's begin with Adam, please. Hi, Adam.
Hi, my name's Adam Lane. I was a cinematographer for Pieces, calling in from Los Angeles.
All right, thank you very much, Adam. How about Dylan?
Hey, my name's Dylan, and I'm the writer and director of Pieces, also from Los Angeles.
Excellent, thank you, Dylan. Hi, Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm Nick. I'm the DP of High Card and also the editor.
All right, great. And then Connor, hello.
Hello, I'm Connor Kiesling. I'm the writer-director of High Card, and I'm calling in from Herndon, Virginia.
Excellent. Hi, Chelsea. How are you today?
Hi, I'm Chelsea, and I am a producer on Pieces, and I'm also calling in from Los Angeles.
Very good. Good morning, Will. How are you?
Oh, good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Where are you calling in from today?
Brooklyn, New York.
And then which film are you with today, Will?
The Woodpecker.
Woodpecker. All right. And then good morning, Jake. How are you?
Hi, Sean. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm with the Woodpecker as well. I co-directed and co-wrote it with Will and our next person, Courtney.
All right, perfect. And then Courtney, good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm also in Brooklyn and yeah, co-directed, co-wrote The Woodpecker.
All right, excellent. Hi. And then Samantha, hello.
Hey, Sean. Hey, everyone. I'm Samantha. I was a producer on Pieces, and I am calling in from Los Angeles.
All right. And then Deckel, good morning.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Deckel Berenson. I'm the writer-director of Anna, and I'm in Cyprus, in Larnaca. So I think you're all from the States, and I'm the only one who's like really far away. So yeah, thanks for having me.
That's exciting. Thank you so much for joining us. It's the afternoon for you, so that is at least a nice thing. We're all kind of having our morning coffee. And I also think that you win the award for the furthest call-in today. So welcome and thank you very much. So thank everyone on here, did you get a chance to say hello and say which film you were with? I think so. All right. So the programming team today grouped these shorts together because I think that they work really beautifully in dialogue with one another, and that they're united by this kind of beautiful common theme and thematic link, putting yourself out there. Each of these stories present very personal and intimate looks that are ultimately either about being open and truthful, or setting out on your own, creating your own path, or living boldly and unapologetically. So first, I'll call in kind of each project by the film, and ask if you wouldn't mind, could you share a little bit about the origin of your project and how you decided you wanted to tell this story, and then maybe how you got involved. So let's start with the crew from Pieces, please.
Yeah, I guess I'll start off a bit. Essentially, how the short came about conceptually was actually it started from an argument actually that I got into with a girl I was talking to at the time. So it kind of was fitting. And it actually kind of went into this cycle where it was, you know, everything was great. then everything was terrible, and then everything was great again. And so from that, I just kind of felt that it was like the cycle of an argument and trying to incorporate that into couples. And through a lot of, rewriting and all that, it turned into what it is now with 4 different couples and all portraying the cycle of an argument.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what's so moving about the short film is that, we're seeing these 4 couples at these very kind of intimate moments in their life, and they're having these kind of relationship redefining discussions. And I think it's just really beautifully done. So thank you very much for sharing it. Anybody else from the Pieces team, would you like to share a little bit maybe about how you got connected with the project, or why the material resonated so much with you?
Yeah, maybe Sam or Chelsea can speak on that.
I got connected actually through Sam, so I feel like a little unfair stealing the question. She brought me into it, but I also just wanted to echo what Dylan said about the relationship piece is really what drew me into the project. And it's awesome that we have Adam here, because I was captured by Dylan's vision to really make this a seamless kind of story where everyone, I don't want to give too much away, but all the relationships bleed into each other in some way. And that's told through not just the writing, but through Adam's cinematography. And so Dylan had that vision from the beginning, and Adam really executed on it. But I think that that's what brought me in, was seeing that was going to be how this short was executed from the very beginning. So
very cool. All right. Anyone else from Team Pieces? Yeah, Samantha.
I'll just add, I was really drawn to, I met Dylan through a mutual friend and was just really drawn to how ambitious the project was. For a short film, it really packs a lot in. And I was just really excited and honored to be a part of bringing something that ambitious to, a short film. And I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, it certainly does cover a lot of relationship ground in under 8 minutes. So kudos to all of you for working that in, I think, so authentically too. I think when audiences see it, they'll really be very moved.
Thanks. And yeah, I guess if I want to just defer to Adam really quickly, I don't know, without giving everything away with it, I don't think it gives it away that we achieved it in a single take. I don't think that's too much of a giveaway. But Adam, if you want to just mention kind of a similar aspect of when I brought you into that and all that.
Yeah, when Dylan first approached me about it, he had the single shot in mind, and it was kind of added to the relationship, and like it being a single argument, like what Dylan was talking about, it like flowing between like coming back in, leaving, coming back in again. You know what I mean? It's like definitely feels a little bit more realistic in that sense of like general relationship vibes. But yeah, this from the beginning, it was always trying to accomplish this goal that lifted it up the best way possible. You know what I mean? And I think it was a really great idea to like start off with the one shot. So it just kind of helped everything all together, rather than being too like sometimes one shots are a little too distracting. You know what I mean? It's like just pays too much attention to itself, but because the argument's happening, you just kind of fall into it. So
yeah. If I'm being honest, I have to admit, as I was watching it through the first time, I would say about halfway through the first kind of component, like the first couple that we see, and then all of a sudden I went, oh my gosh, wait, is this one take? And then I like kind of frantically rewound, and I went, oh my God, yeah, it is. And then I kept going, and I went, oh, okay, we got to talk about this. So thank you very much for bringing that up. I think it was beautifully executed.
Oh, thank you. I think that's really all Adam in that design too, because I deferred to him on most of it because it's the first time I've ever done a single shot on something so intricate. So I was like, nervous as hell as well. And Adam and the Steadicam operator was really, they were just incredible and super professional, but they also just knew how to do it. I don't think at any point did they come to me and be like, yeah, I don't think we can do this. And I think that's really encouraging whenever you're doing something of that feat. You just want someone to climb the mountain with you. But also what you said is kind of funny. One of our executive producers, Andrew, actually, who EP'd Anna as well, when he saw the film, he was like, yeah, I didn't even see where you guys hid the cuts. And I was like, oh, well, there aren't any. He's like, oh, gotcha. So it's not just you. A lot of people have been saying that.
That's
So,
very cool.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Team Pieces, for getting us started. So let's talk with the crew from the Woodpecker today, because there are 3 of you here. And the Woodpecker is a lovely short about a young man in a CVS trying to make a last-minute animal costume with the help of a friend over the phone. And I just have to say, I love the film so much. And it gave me kind of this wonderful nostalgia for the time, like pre-quarantine and pre-pandemic, when we could shop kind of aimlessly and like go in and just be moved by whatever we find in the store. So that was just like this lovely kind of ounce of nostalgia. But could each of you talk a little bit about where did this idea come from? How were you drawn to the story? And how did you individually get connected with this project?
Yeah, I'll start. It's basically, so we work together as like a writing directing team, and so we usually just do like a dramatic recreations of things that happen in our lives. So this was inspired by a friend in Boise, Idaho, where I'm from, who called me while he was doing this at a Rite Aid, basically, and I was at Brooklyn, like in home in bed already, and then I just like, I've been really inspired by this character a lot, so we kind of got one of our friends who has a very big personality to kind of embody that. And kind of, we basically just recreated like what I could remember of the conversation. And then the most dramatic part was going into a CVS to try to film, I would say. Courtney, Will, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just in terms of like the structure, one of the things we wanted to do was, we were inspired by, you know, there are like certain songs that are like half one song and then another song starts. Like we were thinking of the Ariana Grande song. It's like, Forever Boy, no, Knew Better / Forever Boy, where in the middle of the song there's a like a sound change, and then it's a different song starts with one song, and we wanted to make a short film with that kind of structure. So like, and so this ours has like, there's sort of like the shadow of a song in the first section, and then we wanted to make like an original song. So that was also part of the idea. It was like we wanted the film to change into sort of a different film in the middle with like a sound cue.
Very cool. Yeah. All right. Anyone else from Team Woodpecker want to share anything right now before we kind of dive back in with some specific questions in a little bit?
As the only remaining member of the team, I think we can move on.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Will. I appreciate that. All right. And then we have Stash with Single Handed here. Hello, Stash.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Could you start off by just saying, introduce yourself, where you're calling in from, and then tell us a little bit about how you became connected with Dustin.
Hi, everybody. I'll do that. I can't promise my internet will hold. I don't know what it is today. It's just not, it's not behaving itself. My name's Stash Slucky. I'm calling in from Telluride, Colorado. Single Handed is a film I made with Dustin Reynolds. And I actually never met Dustin before I made the film. I got contacted by a mutual friend who said, I'm sailing to Antarctica on a very small boat from Port Williams, Chile, through the Drake Passage to Antarctica, and would you like to make a film about us doing that? And I actually said, no, I would love to go on this trip. Obviously, a chance to sail to Antarctica is an opportunity you don't pass up, but the thought of making a film about 4 white men going to Antarctica seemed untenable to me. It's the last thing the world needs. So I said no. And he said, well, hold on. Actually, one of the guys only has 1 arm and 1 leg through a tragic accident, and I want you to make a film about him. I was like, well, and he's sailing, I should say, around the world solo. And so that sounded appealing to me. And so then the film began. So that's how I met Dustin.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I was curious about if you had known him going in and you had a relationship going in, but that's fascinating that you met him kind of through a mutual friend and then got connected that way.
Yeah, and I benefited from the fact that he's somewhat of a public figure in the obscure world of solo sailing around the world. So I could read some interviews with him and see some YouTube clips people had posted about him.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And I apologize for calling on you right then. I saw you pop in and I went, we have him. We're going to get him on this chat. Like, even if he pops away, we'll at least have a little snippet of him talking. So thank you very much for indulging my calling on you right away.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. And let's talk to the team from High Card now. So High Card, could you tell us a little bit about where did the idea come from to kind of put this very intimate but frank and honest conversation between two people about to or deciding whether to have sex into make it into a film?
I had this idea about it was a very basic idea that I had a couple years before I even did High Card, which was just that you got two people in a room, they're thinking about having sex, they're both afraid to admit it, but they also don't know really how to get there. And I was really fascinated about trying to figure out how that conversation would go, and just kind of playing with that was a lot of fun. And I had to write it it was a month before Nick and I were in a undergraduate thesis class. It was our short film for that class at UNC Wilmington. So I had to not fall back, but it was an old idea that I had and wanted to explore it, but develop it more. So it was a lot of fun doing that. It was a nice break from our last project, which was much more serious. So usually after I do something serious, I like to fall back on something more funny and comedic that you can play with, some awkward moments. But yeah, it can be a lot of fun to write. I don't know if you want to add anything, Nick, or not.
I would just like to point out that it's always a pleasure working with Connor, because he's one of those directors that always has an idea for the visual as well. So it's very easy to work with him to figure out how to technically actually recreate what he's thinking about,
Very cool. Well, thank you both so much. And then let's talk a little bit with Deckel about your film, Anna. And Anna is a lovely short film about a woman that is working in, is it like a meat processing or a butcher?
Yeah, it's like a meat factory, meat processing factory.
Yeah. And she answers this radio ad to possibly go on dates or entertain single American tourists that are coming to the Ukraine. And it's this really kind of beautiful film about this woman who seems to be maybe in a rut, or maybe to have kind of, forgotten to care for herself, that kind of ventures into something that she hopes will be exciting or new. Declan, could you tell us what drew you to the story? Why did you kind of want to bring this to life on film?
So actually, Anna is the second part of a 5-part omnibus feature that I was working on, or am working on. And the first one was shot in Nepal a year before, in 2018. And that film tells the story of a 13-year-old girl who works in a paragliding landing field in Nepal. And Anna is the second part. And the idea behind the different films was to make a feature that all tell stories of disenfranchised and kind of unseen women or girls from around the world. And the actual stories themselves are inspired by things that I've seen myself while I was traveling, because it was a long period of about 5 years when I was just traveling around the world, different countries. So it's all stories, all things that I've heard about or saw firsthand. So I got to know about these parties in Ukraine when I was traveling there a few years ago. And I found it, ridiculous in many ways, that the Americans are coming in bus loads of Americans every few months to Ukraine, essentially to look for a mate and kind of take advantage of the situation that Ukraine is kind of it's in East Europe, and the economic situation there is not great. So Yeah, so that's where the idea came from, and I just went there and made a film.
Yeah. And I think that the film is really a very kind of beautiful articulation of the guiding theme that's linked all of the shorts on this call together of putting yourself out there. Because I'm not sure that anyone does it much more than Anna, who, answers this ad and then goes, on this very cringeworthy, beautifully awkward translation of a date. So could I ask, a lot of what we see of Anna, she's quiet in a lot of the film. Like there are people kind of talking around her, or there's a lot of ambient noise. What was it like kind of working with her as an actress to get her to communicate and tell so much of a rich story with so little dialogue that she herself speaks?
That's actually a great question, and I think that the truth is that it's a lot to do with the casting. So I was casting Anna like for a month because we could only see people in the weekends. It's a long story. So I had in my mind, because there is so little dialogue in the film, and especially from Anna, I had in my mind, I knew who I wanted. Like I saw Anna in my mind, but it was very difficult to find somebody who captured the essence of the story. And it's just like it's a kind of a character that you need to find a person that it's not it just makes it so much more authentic and real if you just find a person that embodies the story. So as soon as I saw her and we just started talking through a translator, because she didn't speak English, yeah, I knew that she was perfect for it, and we worked together for a few months, and we did a lot of auditions and rehearsals. Sorry, and worked on all those scenes, and yeah, and then I was very happy with how it came out.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about the casting? I'm very curious, since you brought it up with Anna, of the American gentleman that she goes on the date with, because he just seemed like such a gem of a find. Was he a professional actor? Was he someone that you had recruited? How did you kind of?
So look, there's so much there's so much hard work that goes to it, and sometimes it's also so much luck, So Anna, I've seen dozens of women for Anna, right? And my casting director kept sending me women who were too young and not at all what I would imagined, and it was like a long process. Eric, on the other hand, he's the actor who plays that man. So I was actually so worried because I was living in Ukraine at the time for 3-4 months to make the film, and I was so worried that I will have nobody to that I could cast for the role, that I advertised in London for it, and I did dozens of video kind of casting, and I couldn't find anybody. And then I made one post on Facebook in Kiev, in expats in Ukraine in Kiev, and I wrote, "Hey, I'm making a short film and I'm looking for an American." And somebody wrote me, "Hi, yeah, I'm an actor and I will be happy to audition for you." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And then he came, and it just as soon as he sat and opened his mouth, I was like, "Oh my God, this guy is perfect." So it was the only person that I saw in Ukraine, and he was just amazing. And that was just so much luck with him. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, you had mentioned that this was the second in a series of 5 films. How far along are you kind of in this series now? How many are done, and can we hope to see another at Woods Hole soon?
Yes, so the idea was to make the short films and then get rejected from all the festivals, and then make another short, get rejected, make another short, get rejected, and then make a feature and get rejected as a feature. But somehow Ashmina got into festivals, and Anna got into many festivals, and now I took the third part that I wrote and I actually expanded it into a feature. And now it's already the 4th draft, and I'm planning to shoot it, I don't know, in 2 years, after finding financing and everything. But I'm actually still planning to finish the project because I have a lot more of the scripts that I wrote for the project. And I have more scripts than I need. So there is one for Brazil that I really want to shoot. So I know that I will shoot that one. And then there is a couple more and a couple more ideas that I want to write. So I'm sure that I will finish the project, but it's probably going to take a few years. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think it's such a beautiful film, and I think it has such a funny and kind of open and at times melancholy feel to it. And I think you really captured such a beautiful and realistic moment in this character's life, and getting to see this kind of excitement and joy and of trying to find something new is such a pleasure to watch. So for those of you watching our Q&A, I really hope you get a chance to seek out Anna.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, let's move to Single-Handed, because Stash, it looks like the internet is cooperating, so we will use this while we can. Could you tell me a little bit about what it was like filming this? Because the cinematography in this film is stunning. But also the boat looks very small just from a practical standpoint. So how did you go about kind of getting these beautiful sweeping shots of Antarctica and these intimate shots on the boat while also being on, you know, a very small boat?
Yeah, it was, I definitely spent a lot of time thinking about it before we left, and before I left America to get down there, figuring out the right package that I needed. That would also, we were going to be at sea for 6 weeks. So how I would charge the batteries and how I would make, what camera would last, could survive this sort of expedition. And so when you're at sea for 6 weeks, you have so much time to get intimate shots. I mean, there was at one point, I was like, I cannot do another shot of Dustin cooking something, you know, which was right next to where my bed was. So the interiors were easy to get. The one thing I decided when I was in Antarctica was, because I wanted the mood of the film to be a little gloomy, was I mainly shot during inclement weather. You know, we had sun for 24 hours a day, but when it was overcast. And I also tried, even though I have incredible amounts of footage of penguins and seals, I kept every life form out except Dustin and ice, because I wanted the mood to be melancholy, because I feel to a degree his life is melancholy. He's managed to do this amazing thing, but only because of deep tragedy that I suffered. And the other thing that I realized sailing is that sailors, there is I don't want to say sadness, but there's a hauntedness to their existence, because you're choosing to go as far away from humanity and people as you possibly can and spend enormous amounts of time alone. And so that was the look of the film, was to sort of capture that sort of sad loneliness of the ocean. And I was lucky enough to do it in Antarctica, which only enhances a sad and a sad and lonely place, and stunningly beautiful. I don't want to I don't want to disparage anybody's desire to go to Antarctica, but when you see it, you realize, you know, as Herzog said, it's the only place that there's that man's not native to in the world, and the only life forms that are there are there temporarily, as they all flee mostly during the winter. So I wanted to express that whole sort of very lonely palette.
Well, thank you very much. So Stash, yours is the only documentary that we're discussing in our group of films.
I'm just figuring that out right now.
All of the others are, you know, are narrative shorts. But I'm curious to find out just a little bit, especially since you didn't know Dustin really very well going into this. Can you talk a little bit about how you, as a filmmaker, as a documentarian, how did you build a rapport with him to get him to share some of the most painful and vulnerable moments of his life? And you know, I'm thinking especially when he's talking about whether or not to make the call. And for people that see the film, you'll kind of find out what that is in the film. But you know, he's so open and vulnerable with you, and you didn't have that relationship going in. How did you kind of foster that rapport?
Well, I was going to do an initial interview with him before we left Porter Williams to start sailing through the Drake Passage, and he we were so busy trying to get the boat ready. We had 3 days from when we hit Porter Williams to then we had a very small window opening because our boat was so small. It's very slow. So we had to take the first window we could to get across the Drake Passage. So I didn't get a chance to interview him. And then the rest of the time was spent sailing. So I just got to know him really, really well on the sailing. And we have such a tight friendship. He's one of my best friends in the world now. That we actually got back to Porter Williams. So it was 6 weeks later, I actually finally did a proper interview with him where I sat him down and just not just him at the kitchen table playing backgammon with me. And that by that point, I had taken notes through the whole trip of everything he had told me at that point and incorporated those notes in my interview. And the interview is the actual interview itself is only an hour long, but we just at that point had such an openness with each other. He could speak so frankly about this horrible moment in his life. And he during the interview, he broke down and cried. And this is after some very scary times in Antarctica and in the Drake Passage. And it wasn't till we got to this to this interview in Porter Williams, and I think at the end of that day we departed, and he's continuing to sail around the world. So I've only talked to him on via Zoom. I haven't actually seen him, and that was December 2019.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So could you also tell us a little bit about the choice of using, that interview and the dialogue as narration? Because I think it's so fascinating that we get to know his voice so well before we ever really see him and spend physically time with him. What drew you to that approach with telling this story?
It wasn't anything I had in mind at the beginning. I find most times when I'm doing doc work, I find interviews can be cringeworthy anyways, and especially in a place like Antarctica when they take you out of the moment and there's someone sitting there and it seems unpassionate. But it wasn't my desire. I just realized that the footage of you seeing him not just staring out into the open ocean, or in some small confined cabin, and just hearing his voiceover, I felt it was so much more compelling than actually seeing him. But I also have heard from other people, and people I very much respect, that they have a tough time with that. So I realized it's an aesthetic choice I made that not everyone will enjoy, but I stuck with it.
Oh, it definitely works. Don't listen to them if they say they don't. Right. So just, one final thing, Stash, could you tell us, where is he on his journey? He's doing this by himself. Like how much further does he have to go? Has he finished?
No, he, and this is, the film's a little deceiving because I don't actually make it clear that Antarctica is not part of his around the world journey. He started in Hawaii. He will only count the journey of parts he does solo. So I was with him. So Antarctica won't count as that, but he started in Hawaii and now he's in the Caribbean. So, and he just has to go back to Hawaii from the Caribbean, and he's completed it. He was in South Africa at the beginning of 2019, sailed from South Africa to the Caribbean and spent this last winter in the Caribbean, and was going to then in June go through the Panama Canal to Hawaii and be done. But because of COVID, he can't go to Panama. So he's had to actually sail, and he's in Providence, Rhode Island right now. Or actually, his boat's in Providence, Rhode Island. He sailed it up there, and he's going to have to spend the winter in Providence now because he can't go anywhere else because of COVID, and he can't go back to the Caribbean because of hurricane season. And then I guess in June of 2021, hopefully, if the world's back to some semblance of normal, he'll cross the Panama Canal and go back to Hawaii. He doesn't want to go into the southern seas again because it's just too hard on the boat. So doing it via the Panama Canal would be easier. Yeah, and that'll be it.
Right. Well, thank you very much for talking about the film and sharing Dustin's journey with us.
Yeah, I'm so excited. This is the first time I've ever been with all narratives.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Well, and it is cool too, because when, and I promise for those of you that are watching at home, get a chance, please watch these films and just look at the interesting ways that they're in dialogue with each other. because I really do think that the programming team, putting them together kind of under this umbrella of putting yourself out there, is such a smart way to package these films and to get people kind of thinking about them, because they're all about people kind of boldly doing things or having these raw, vulnerable, authentic moments. And it's cool to have a blend of fiction and nonfiction stories like in this. So thank you very much for joining us. Well, let's go to the team with the woodpecker, because like I said at the beginning, I watching it, I just had this like bizarre nostalgia for like, oh my God, I just want to wander a store. But I think that you capture such a beautiful look at kind of like the possibility of an evening of, like, well, what happens, because it's so many of these little moments of like, well, what if this costume comes together and what's this party going to be like? Or even, what's this track gonna sound like once I like get it like going and just out of my head. But I think that there's such a beautiful, hopeful atmosphere in the film. And I just wanted to thank you so much for it, because I think it's so much fun. But one of the things that I really appreciated most about it is that so much of the dialogue happens over the phone. And that I feel like it's a very kind of modern portrait of what a lot of long distance or just modern friendships are, or even in the age of COVID-19 and a pandemic, just friendships in general, because we're not really together. So could you talk a little bit about what it was like kind of navigating having this conversation play out over the phone, and what those opportunities were for you as a filmmaking team to kind of have these characters separate while having this conversation?
Right. Well, I guess, yeah, back to the thing, because I feel like there's this whole idea that people don't like talk on the phone anymore, but I feel like that was relatable, but then I realized I actually do talk on the phone to my friends who live in, whatever, specifically this person who it's based on. But it was actually ended up being really difficult to like script, because we wanted to sound like kind of off the cuff and like allow for some type of improvisation, but then we realized pretty quickly that wouldn't be possible. So we had to kind of stick to an exact script that sounded kind of natural. But the actual mechanics of it were just basically that we would just have the conversation in real time on repeat over and over again. Like when we were filming in CVS, I was just on the other end of the CVS on my cell phone, so that way we could get like naturalistic reactions. So yeah, it was basically but yeah, it was not as easy as I thought it would be to film a phone conversation. Will, were you going to say something?
Well, it's funny because I think when we were planning it, we intentionally wanted to do something that we thought would be really simple to execute and have like, one person on screen at a time, because in past films of ours, we've had like larger casts, which is cool, but can be a lot to coordinate. And we did have, only one person on screen at a time pretty much, but it's ironic because it ended up still being really stressful and complicated, because we were like sort of stealing footage in a CVS and we were like on this compressed time frame, and then had to have like Jake somewhere else on the phone so the conversation would seem natural. And then anyway, it ended up still being kind of stressful to shoot, as everything sort of is, I guess. Yeah, that's my thoughts about phone call.
But yeah, I'm glad that you thought it had this hopeful feeling, because I think we were trying to convey that. And just like the simple joy of like literally going to a costume party. Like it sounds like he's in high school, but he's like in his late 20s. Like it's like we're kind of showing this like popular kid, but he's literally like almost 30. And but like that's real. And so we just kind of wanted to like portray this like character who was kind of the life of the party that we never actually see. Yeah.
Because I think that there is such a lovely kind of buildup and anticipation for it. And again, I think like it resonates so much more even, unintentionally with the pandemic, because as I was watching it, I literally kept thinking, oh my gosh, to just aimlessly wander a store, like to even think of going to a party, like, wow, what a concept. So I think it's so resonant. I think it's so ambitious. Like I think it's just so such a lovely film. I wanted to ask you about the script and writing it though, because I think even though it is about going to a party, I think that we do get some very kind of real slices of life and these kind of very emotional kind of moments that peek in that you get these glimpses of with, you know, like, how's your mom? Or, oh, you know, she's retweeting tornado warnings. Like, you're getting these very kind of like funny glimpses at the very real life and the real kind of external pressures. So how did you kind of approach, you know, writing this so that, you know, it has this kind of air of like fun, hopeful frivolity, but also kind of allowing some of those moments in?
Well, like I said, it was kind of based on an actual conversation where this person I was talking to, like, we're so comfortable with each other that the conversation is often, it just like meanders, and like, obviously things creep in, like, how's your mom's surgery? Like that, like, but it's not, I mean, as we all know, like, you can't, not every conversation you have about your mom's surgery is going to be this like dramatic, you know, thing. Like, it's just kind of like you have to get updates, but you're also kind of like in a CVS. So you're talking about whatever you just happen to see in the store. You might be like, oh, that reminds me of a dream I had. So we kind of wanted to include these elements of, I mean, frankly, it was, a lot of it was based on just the real conversation. And then we, with the tornado warnings, for example, that was something like, it was just like an example of someone you see from
I think what we were trying to do with it, and as we were adjusting the script, like, it was based on a real conversation, but what drew us to that conversation was mostly like the density of it, and like that when you really have like real conversations are actually full of all of these multivalent things that are happening around it, and like you don't really get to I think we really love the idea of having these like two sort of static figures that are sharing a lot of, like, it's very dense, but you don't really get it, but you feel the density of it and the texture of it. And so we just like added more and more and more, like what else can shoot out here, or in sort of in conversations when, because in this conversation, like, one person is a bit more active and one is more kind of more passive. Like it almost feels like Richard, one of the characters, like kind of isn't listening to a lot of the things that Jake is saying, and that's also a very real way, like, function of being in the world, and a way that, like, it's a kind of a plot in a way, like things getting lost like that. So yeah, that's what we're thinking.
Well, and I think it really translated and it connected very well, because I think in a lot of ways it's so relatable, because how often do we have conversations where, you know, you can tell people are multitasking, but it doesn't diminish the conversation at all. You know, I think that you captured something really beautiful in this. So thank you very much. You know, I also wanted to ask you about the song that kind of concludes the film, that, you know, we find out that there's been, you know, like a jazz musician that used to live in the building, and it's kind of inspired this, you know, wake of music. Could you talk a little bit about, I think it's a very funny moment, but I also think it's very vulnerable, sharing something that you've created. So how did you kind of navigate that layer of like sharing this creation, but then also letting us actually hear it a little bit over the credits?
I mean,
right.
Jake,
well, I guess, I mean,
Yeah. Well, when we were sitting around, like, when we were trying to like find different pieces that we would like to include in this conversation and like add to, like, that we thought would fit well in this script. Like, another thing that Jake had like recently been telling us was about how he had like been having these song ideas like come to him like when he's like waking up from like in the night. And so we were like, that's a really fun element to include. And then how, like, we just thought it would be really fun to try to actually like execute that and then include it in the film itself, which is what we ended up doing with the help of a friend who's like a music producer-y type person.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I'm losing my train of thought, but Jake or Courtney?
Oh no, but yeah, there was a streak when I first moved into this apartment where I would have like these song ideas. I feel like they would come to me, and it was like I would tell people about them, and it was kind of embarrassing. And then someone in my lobby was like, "Oh, a jazz musician used to live there," and then I would add that to my story, and I was like, "Is this an embarrassing story I'm trying to tell people, but like to make me seem interesting?" And then I'm glad we included it, because it was like a snapshot of a very real time of my life, I guess, but. Yeah, the funny thing is, like, I'm telling this to Richard, who's not really listening, and then what we wanted to kind of show how, like, even if you're not listening necessarily, like, it does resonate with him ultimately, because then in the end he's thinking of the song that my character was telling him about. Yeah.
And I also wanted to compliment too, the Uber drive there is just beautifully shot. So like, congratulations on like just executing that so beautifully. It's lovely. Well, thank you all very much for sharing the woodpecker with us. Let's go to the team from Pieces, please. So, we talked about it a little bit as we were talking about kind of the origin of the project, but I would love to talk about that single take. Because as I was watching it, I too, like once I realized what was happening, started going, oh, there's a cheat here somewhere. Like where are we cutting between? But to hear that there isn't, and that it was just that well choreographed, could you talk about what was it like kind of structuring that, rehearsing that, and then executing it ultimately?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a complicated process, I guess, but the funny thing is, and Sam and Chelsea can attest to this before I actually even talked to Adam about it. Um, in my head, of course, I thought it was going to be an easy deal. Like I didn't think it was going to be hard at all. And of course, then you get collaborators that know things better than I do, and they go, "Okay, no, it's not going to be easy at all. It's going to be really difficult." But the good part of it is that I think we went about it the right way. So essentially, we had 2 days, and one day was full of rehearsal where we just blocked with the actors. We didn't have the Steadicam operator in, but we had the house and the actors and Adam. And me and Adam and the actors essentially just walked through it. And it was really nice to get the timing down for everything, but also just figuring out, where people should be and how the house was structured and where should we place these, this couple or that couple. It was really interesting. And actually, the entire like design of it was changed last minute. So me and Adam had the idea of actually going from room to room initially instead of following the characters. And so when we were doing that, we did that in rehearsal where the camera would actually kind of move from room to room and the characters would already be in the room. And then we quickly realized it just didn't feel good enough. But we didn't realize that till about lunchtime when we were shooting. So it was a little crazy, but we did some halftime adjustments, I'd say, and just changed it up. And I leaned on Adam heavily to be like, what do we need to do and figure this out? And luckily the actors were incredible as well. And everyone kind of, felt like it was theater almost. So it was just a ton of rehearsal, a ton of repetition. And the trick is, to make repetition feel spontaneous. And, after a while, it just feels very fluid. And then once you got it locked down, you can kind of move in between those lines and do fun things and try new things. And it really just honestly was a wild experience, but I didn't see it going any other way. There was a few people I remember sending the script to get their like opinions on, and they were like, you need to stitch it up and, hide a cut in there somehow and do it. And I didn't see it being like that. For me, I didn't want to do the single take just to do a single take either, because I'm really turned off by films that do that, where the form overrides the function and you actually feel like you're just watching it just because it's a single take. I just felt actually like the story was strong enough that you may not even pay attention to the movement of the camera. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what Sam and Chelsea might have a different perspective when it came on. I don't know if you guys felt nervous about it, but I think we all knew it was a high wire act to a degree for sure.
I think it's largely just like navigating the budget too. We are working on a short film budget and in Los Angeles where we're going to shoot. So in any major city, the idea of shooting in a house that we shot in is just, that's the challenge. Just in this story, the house is a character as much as all of the actual characters are characters. And so finding the right house that had the kind of structure that could hold a story like this from starting so young to ending, in such an older generation, that we needed the house to feel like it had the bones to kind of do that. And so that was a challenge in and of itself, finding that house. And we ended up finding an old craftsman that was, a friend of ours, but it's small. And so you know, Adam had this massive challenge of trying to figure out how do you block this movement through this very tiny house and never see another person. And there are a lot of hoops we jumped through, even on shoot day, just to try and hide people around, you know, various things as they exited the frame. So I think that like it's props to Dylan and Adam because yeah, we got this house, but making it work on the day of and changing the kind of direction of the take was just such a feat. I mean, we had great actors too. We were lucky enough to get people that are really seasoned for the project. And I think that it's a testament to them and their ability to kind of move with the punches, if you will. And we did that all in a, what was it, 8 or 10 hour short shoot day? It was really short.
Yeah, because we were what was it, Adam? Because we were chasing sunlight. It was 10.
I think.
10.
I think we shot 8 hours, but you know we had some. You know.
And we only had I think we only had 8 or 7 usable takes.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a ton of takes that we had, you know, as a final product to look through for the final film. So it's also challenging in that regard, but you know, it's is what it was, you know.
Well, thank you very much. And I do apologize. I'm getting in the private chat a very hard rap right now.
Oh.
So thank you so much to the team from High Card for sharing your beautiful film about a conversation about sex and virginity. Thank you so much to Stash for sharing your documentary about what it means to kind of go off on your own and set off in this really kind of authentic way. To Deckel for sharing Anna with us and the beauty of that conversation and that date. And then also thank you to the team from Pieces for talking about how beautifully choreographed your short was. And then the Woodpecker for sharing that beautiful little moment in a CVS on the way to a party. Thank you all so much for joining us. The Woods Hole Film Festival runs Saturday, July 25th to Saturday, August 1st. You've got plenty of time to seek out all of these incredible films. Thank you to everyone watching, and thank you to our guests for sharing their films with us and for having this discussion. Enjoy the festival, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.